All right. Well, let me check the YouTube side to see how I look. That looks pretty decent. Sheed, we here. What's going on, Sheed? Give me one more second, everyone. I have a community tab over on my original YouTube channel, and so I can use that now to maximize eyeballs. So I'm going to share this over there in case other folks want to come over and support. And I'll get this going. I want to make this a quick stream, and because I have to run out somewhere. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Click on this. Give that a thumbs up. Just give me 1 second. Let's see. Two. Let's see. Let me make sure that reads correctly. I'm about to do a stream on one of my short stories over on Big Discussion 76 Entertainment and Media about my hometown of Buffalo, New York. All right. So that's over on my community tab. You know, it's funny, I've been figuring out this YouTube thing as I've been going along. And one of the keys to, YouTubing and blogging and social media is coverage and eyeballs. And so when you get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, you have a quote unquote community tab, which allows you to share things from other YouTube channels onto your community tab. So if you have a large crowd on one channel, you can potentially get more eyeballs on a smaller channel. And this is my smallest channel. I'm also streaming over to Facebook now. I was hesitant and I was deliberating about whether or not I should stream over to Facebook because I have some coworkers over there. And, you never know with coworkers, they can whisper, hey, he YouTubes, he was doing this, he was doing that. But technically, and honestly, I'm off the clock now. So technically I can do whatever I want, but you just never know when you have coworkers in your Facebook network. So, but I decided ultimately to share this over there because this is a Buffalo story. And many of my Facebook friends are Buffalo people. So hence the Buffalo Bills gear. This is a Buffalo story. So folks over there on Facebook might be curious about this as well, though many of them have seen this short story already, but I'm going to read it for whoever wants to hear it today. So let me give you all my official greeting. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Entertainment and Media. First of all, please like the stream, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. This is over on this channel. If you're new, I discuss and cover media. That could be movies, could be TV shows, could be books. I haven't really done anything musical over here yet, but that's what this space is dedicated to. And shout out to Rael from the Roger Report. I realized at some point after hanging out over there pretty much on a regular that I could actually create content over here by reading. I have 2 blogs. One is now more based on business and technology and those kinds of things. And I recently started a writer's blog as well, with more focusing more on more literary stuff. I started that blog because I'm actually working on a larger book project myself, and I thought it would be cool to create a platform to launch that, but also to create a platform for other aspiring writers. I started that about 2 months ago, or maybe a month and a half ago. So that is what that platform is for. And when having a day job, I think if you're going to cross over and potentially launch as an author, I think you have to show your writing chops first, and start to get people used to seeing you as a writer, quote unquote. And so that's why I started that writing platform. I have been doing a series on, I'm going to jump in really shortly because I have some place to go, but I've been reading passages of Code of the Street by Dr. Elijah Anderson, and I'm going to get back to that. But I wanted to make sure my community tab was set up on my original channel first. And I think this short story very much feeds really well into this book. This book is entitled Code of the Street, Decency, Violence, and Decency, Violence, and the Moral Life of the Inner City. And I think, again, this very much is going to feed into that. And the reason I started reading Code of the Street, well, I was curious about it from another YouTube content creator named Mamiya Obsidian Ali, but it also turns out that the most popular video on this channel right here is actually a review of this book right here, Our Kind of People Inside Black America's, upper class. Yeah, Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class. That's the proper title for it. Okay. So I realized in generating this review, discussing, Black social economics and culture is a popular piece of content, or that's a popular area, and that review really resonated with people. Let me slow down. That really resonated with people. So I figured I'd go back the other way and talk about inner city life. And that's how I got started creating my content on Code of the Street. But today, we're going to take it back to my home city of Buffalo. And I wrote a short story on my new writer's blog, Big Words Authors. And the story is entitled, The Last Time I Walked the East Side of Buffalo After Dark. Now, before I jump into that, I'm going to give you a short little introduction of Buffalo. So Buffalo, that's our downtown. That's our city hall. Buffalo sits on the river, the Niagara River in particular. And then it radiates, or it spans eastward, much the same way that Detroit sits on the Detroit River and then spans out westward and northward. Buffalo is in western New York, so you're looking at Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and all of the surrounding towns, whether it's Lockport or East Aurora or Orchard Park or Lancaster or Depew. But when you think about the Buffalo, when you think about the city itself, that's it right there. And then so you have downtown Buffalo. I just showed you a picture of that. You have the west side over near Buff State. You have North Buffalo. You have South Buffalo. And then you have the east side of Buffalo. And the east side of Buffalo is mostly Black, at least as it's composed and constituted now. As with many inner cities, Buffalo is going through a bit of a gentrification and a bit of a revitalization. But each time I go home, the east side is still mostly Black. And you see all kinds of things. You see liquor stores, you see Arab stores, not really so many Korean stores much anymore, but you see hair weave and hair product stores on the east side. You don't see major proprietorships there. You have to go out into the suburbs to get to a Target or a Walmart or something like that. And you see a lot of things on the East Side, and you have some violence, and you have all kinds of things. So that's my short introduction to the East Side. And most of my life growing up in Buffalo was on the East Side. We were on the West Side when I was younger, but at some point we moved over to the East Side, and my mom actually still lives on the East Side of Buffalo. So this story, let me jump into the story because it's 6:10, and again I want to get moving. So let me enable my screen share. Yeah, please hit the like if you're here. I'm not expecting a large crowd. Sheed, I thank you for being here. By the way, Sheed, you're down in Georgia. One of the most popular destinations for Buffalonians, especially in the boomer generation. So my aunts and uncles, many of them relocated to Atlanta. My mother stayed in Buffalo, as did her oldest brother, my oldest uncle. But Atlanta and now Charlotte, the down south cities, those were all destinations for Buffalonians. And I hear quite a few Detroiters as well, and folks from New York City. Though that was a popular destination. I just thought of that since Sheet is in the chat right there. So I'm going to enable my screen share. I'm going to read this story, and I will wrap this stream up. This may be one of the last post-work live streams because, within a couple of months, things are opening back up. On a Wednesday, I may actually be in the office in another 3 to 4 months. So this may be one of the last after work live streams. So I'm going to read this short story, and then I'll conclude with some comments. And there's some folks have actually left comments underneath the story, which is very, very helpful when you're creating a blog or a YouTube channel or something. When you're creating something, the engagement from the audience is really, really important, because you could create something and it could just sit there and no one would really know. But there was a lot of engagement with this one, I think, particularly because it was a Buffalo story, and my relatives and people from Buffalo, people who went to my high school, I think this all resonated with them. So this piece is entitled "The Last Time I Walked the East Side of Buffalo After Dark." The background I used for this live stream is actually this picture here. And of course, I don't have it queued up. Give me a second. Let me find this live stream. There we go. The background for this is actually the corner of Suffolk and Millicent. And that is right smack dab on the east side of Buffalo. That's a couple of blocks away from one of the homes that I grew up in, at least from 7th grade until I left Buffalo to go to college. And that is actually the street and the corner where the incident in this story took place. What's going on, Extended Clips? Appreciate you guys for being here. Extended Clips is here. He's a one of my strongest supporters here on YouTube and on Facebook. And also thank you, Sheed, for hanging out in the chat as well. So I'm going to jump into this story. And the excerpt reads, "It was my first time learning that trouble can come find you even when you haven't done anything to stir it." Okay, I'm going to read that again. "It was my first time learning that trouble can come find you even when you haven't done anything to stir it." And that is a reality when you're living in the inner city, and when you're living in an impoverished neighborhood. I'm not saying my neighborhood was impoverished, but when you have those elements around, even in lower middle class neighborhoods, um, trouble and violence is always are always not far away. So this reads as follows. This short story on Big Words Authors comes from my hometown of Buffalo, New York. It involves something that most everyone who has grown up in the inner city has experienced. Sometimes situations in life come find you even when you are not looking for them. I actually asked my mother for a Bible verse that might go with this one. My mom's very spiritual, and she proofreads most of my stuff, and she suggested this verse from the Psalm 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadows of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. If you grew up in a Black church, you probably have heard that verse ad nauseum. The last time I walked on the east side of Buffalo after dark was in the late 1990s. It was definitely after high school, and it was before I started graduate school. I was an undergraduate in my late teens and early 20s. Like Detroit, my hometown of Buffalo, New York, had started developing its own reputation for violence and deviant behavior, a hallmark of many deindustrialized cities in the United States. If you're curious about such things, a good book to read would be The Code of the Street: Decency, Violence, and the Moral Life of the Inner City by Dr. Elijah Anderson, who describes this phenomenon in Philadelphia. So I broke this up into subsections. Google and Google's bots like subsections, and I think it's good for writing pieces like this. So this subsection is entitled "Hanging Out on Chuck's Street." It was a summer night like so many I'd experienced growing up in my beloved hometown. I was on my friend Chuck's street, Martha, which was near the Suffolk Street intersection and the 33 Kensington Expressway. It was the summertime. The sun had set and the street lights came on after 8 p.m. I was no longer a child, so I could technically hang out as long as I wanted to with no recourse from my mother. We started doing that in high school anyway. I was home on summer break and was living unsupervised most of the year now already because I was attending school down south, Johnson C. Smith University. Chuck Chuck was one of many class clowns at Hutchinson Central Technical High School, also known as Hutch Tech, for those unfamiliar with it. While I was there, he just happened to be one from my graduating class of 1994. We befriended one another in our freshman year and were tight and had been tight ever since. Along with another friend by the name of Heston, our friendships lasted long after we received our diplomas in the mid-1990s. Starting in high school, it was nothing for me to wander over to Chuck's house from my own and come back after dark, as it was only a 10 to 15 minute walk. While at Chuck's house, we'd hang out on his porch, shooting the breeze with the other kids on his street. We would indulge in ribbing on each other and talk about all kinds of things in the sports and hip hop worlds. People we knew around town, girls we wanted to get with, everything. There were always lots and lots of laughs and jokes, some of which Chuck authored and some at his expense. We always had a good time. Yeah, Chuck was a good dude. Definitely one of our class clowns. We indulged in a lot of ribbing on each other. Yeah, Chuck was a character. And we've lost contact with Chuck. So hopefully Chuck is okay. Hopefully he's still out there. Hello, Corrine Henry. Thank you for stopping through. Okay. A Buffalo summer night, unlike any other. One night after dark, I left Chuck's porch. I headed for home, but this time with a different outcome than previous nights. It was a night I would never forget. That particular night, I turned up Millicent Avenue and planned to walk down Orleans Street back to my mother's street. As I strolled carefree up the street, not far from the corner, a car pulled up alongside me, starting events that would forever change my life. Now, I wrote this in all caps so the reader could see that the intensity of this, but I won't yell this out. Were you trying to break in my car, man? The driver of the car was a menacing looking black man who could have been in his 20s. If my memory serves me correctly, he wore a short afro and was brown skinned. He might have been wearing all black and maybe not. At nighttime, most dark colors look the same. It was one of those instances which triggers your fight or flight response because you know there is imminent danger. It all happened so fast that I didn't ponder trying to run. Had I tried, he had a clear advantage. By default, I chose trying to reason with him. Were you trying to break into my car, man? He stopped his car and got out, crossed the street, and approached me. I felt my chest pounding and my breath shortening in anticipation of whatever was going to happen next. No, I wasn't. It wasn't me, I said, holding my hands up in surrender, hoping that he would recognize that I was the last person who would try to do such a thing to his car. Were you trying to break into my car, man? I felt something hard collide with the side of my head, knocking me back. Is this really happening to me? My mind raced as the situation continued unfolding. Were you trying to break into my car, man? Something else collided with the side of my head, further disorienting me. I looked around for help on the street, but this was the one night no one seemed to be out on their porches. Even if they were out, would someone have helped? To the casual onlooker, me and my assailant could have been a drug dealer and a junkie, a bookie, and someone who owed him money, or a man seeking revenge on someone who sought to break into his car. We could have been any one of the now ubiquitous statistics involving violence and young black men in the United States inner cities. I turned and ran at first out into the street, hoping that someone would see us. A car speeding down the street slammed on its brakes and honked, and then kept going. Again, this could have been an altercation taking place for any number of reasons, and why would someone else look to get involved? My assailant caught me, and I waited for him to present a weapon in that early Buffalo twilight. Something else slammed into the side of my head, this time dropping me to the ground. I waited for what I thought was certain death. I laid still on the ground as the world went silent, waiting for my fate, which I just knew was going to involve a gun. After moments of silence, I looked up slowly, and my assailant was gone. I got myself together and then hurried back home. I scurried up Millicent to Orleans and then to my mother's street. I turned and looked around at every corner. My hands burned slightly from some of the scrapes on my skin. I probably got them when I fell on the ground. My mind continued racing. Is he still out here? Is he going to come back for me? Why is this happening? As I entered the house, my mom was in her bedroom praying, just getting up from her bedside, if my memory is accurate. In those stages of our lives, she had progressed on her spiritual journey. She told me she was praying around the same time that I described my altercation. It was the second time she experienced one of her sons coming home after a near life and death experience. The first was my brother's second or third year of high school when he and some buddies went to a party on the west side of Buffalo where they didn't know anyone. I remember that night vividly as well. I'm going to stop for a second. Let's see. Close that. What's going on, Wayman Brown? McKinley High School in the house. All right. I'm almost done with this. Getting closure. In the aftermath of it all, I was a bit shaken up mentally. It was my first time learning that trouble can come find you, even when you haven't done anything to stir it. All you have to do is look like someone else. This is what's called a crime of mistaken identity. And I recall my dad telling me a similar story from his youth in the New York City subway system. I suddenly didn't feel safe in my neighborhood or my city. What if I ran into this guy again? One of Mom's approaches to help me get past the incident was to physically walk with me down Millicent Avenue so that I could mentally confront the incident and get closure on it. I recall feeling a sense of resentment and not wanting to go back there. She was right, and it was for the best to at least get past the fear that was dominating my soul. I've been walking these streets for years and nothing ever happened to me, Chucky said afterwards when I told him what happened. I didn't hear any compassion or sympathy in his voice. I didn't know if he was just saying that to be a smartass or just making an observation. In hindsight, it could have been either, but it sounded like because he'd never experienced it, what happened to me was somehow invalid. Well, bro, it's no secret that some folks in the family question your toughness. In what was one of many such declarations throughout our lives, my brother put his gift of delivery and counsel on display. It was my first ever visit to see him in Sin City. A lively visit in which our best friend left within one night over some silly spat with my brother. That was a very eventful trip, by the way. We ended up in a spat too, and in my case, I resented my brother for a while after he made his judgment on me and the remainder of the trip was ruined. I remember getting on my flight and making eye contact with him as I walked into the jetway with everyone else, or the jet bridge. I felt bad about being angry with him. He looked back at me wondering what he'd said wrong. My visit to the desert should not have finished that way. We were brothers, and we were all we had, as Mom often said then and years later. Over time, we got past it. There's the corner of Suffolk and Millicent once again. Folks in Buffalo know where that is. Walking the east side of Buffalo after dark. I walk the streets of Buffalo at night and have been doing so for a while, my stepfather said. Well, my former stepfather. I see some streets, and when I look down them, they may look dangerous, and I don't go down them. If some trouble comes towards me, I feel confident that I can get out of it or handle it. But I've never been discouraged from walking the east side at nighttime. He was an older man and a Vietnam veteran. I imagine he'd seen much worse than the east side of Buffalo after dark. I think my former stepfather suffered from PTSD, so he'd seen much worse than the east side of Buffalo. In any case, that was the last time I walked the east side of Buffalo after dark. Would I do it if I absolutely had to today? Sure. But like so many inner cities described in the above mentioned book by Dr. Elijah Anderson, I wouldn't do it if unnecessary. If I do it, I'll follow my father's age. I think that should say sage. I'll follow my father's sage wisdom. A child of Upper Manhattan, at some point, he started telling us to keep your eyes moving at all times. So in other words, be mindful of your surroundings. If I had to walk the east side of Buffalo after dark today, I most certainly would. I'd walk it knowing that trouble may come to find me, even if I'm not looking for it. I would know that there's the threat of violence and potentially death for me or someone else. Now, after everything I write now, especially on this writer's blog, I put some post story reflections. So this says, some experiences permanently become a part of us. This experience is one that I will never forget. We may gain closure and heal from the negative experiences in our lives, but some things you never forget. Furthermore, in the United States inner cities, for everyone, there is the threat of violence. Dr. Elijah Anderson covered this in his book, Code of the Street. Finally, to this day, when I visit Buffalo, my mother reminds me every time I go out to be careful out there. I likewise try to get in and out of the city without anything bad happening whenever I visit. So that's that short story. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's in the description box below. If you read it, please give it a like and leave a comment. I'm going to read some of the comments below that piece. I got, well, several folks felt moved to leave comments underneath it, and then I'll conclude this live stream. If no one else wants to come in, I might throw the link in case someone wants to say something. But I intended for this stream to just be short. Let's see. So for me, I said, hello all, thank you for, my phone just went off and it's connected to my Bluetooth speaker. Hello all, thank you to those of you who read the story, and especially those who left comments. Engagement with the content matters. I acknowledge that this wasn't a 100% feel-good story. It's actually more of a cautionary tale and just an account of what happens in the inner cities. Violence is always a possibility. This story touched some people, which is something I was hoping would happen. That means I was able to effectively recreate what happened that fateful night. As I'm finishing my book project, I'm continuing to sharpen my writing skills. Thank you again. Also, if you are an aspiring writer or looking to collaborate, see the guidelines page and reach out to me at the email address there. I'm going to go back to the top. Abdul Gaines wrote, I'm sorry you endured this, Anwar. It's unfortunate that this took place in our community. The acceptance, the nonchalant attitude that is displayed when it comes to Black on Black violence is very troubling, but not surprising. It's been a while since I've walked the streets of inner city Buffalo. I have no problem doing so, but definitely keeping our eyes active and our heads on a swivel is important. Amal Dunbar, my brother, that's my brother, said, well, bro, was there anyone to teach us self-defense? Did anyone teach us to spot predators? Not really. We learned what we learned on our own in the streets. And then he wrote, the incident I had on the West Side was in my senior year of high school. So I left it as is in the actual essay. I think his second or third years, just so that when people read his comment, they know that there was an inaccuracy there, but it was his senior year. They got into a fight. No, they didn't get into a fight. I think they went to a party on the West Side late one night. They didn't know anybody. And then one of the guys they were with had a little too much to drink. And I'll just say that something bad happened, but nothing happened to my brother that night. He got away without bodily harm. My buddy Heston, who I mentioned in the story, said, wow, bro, I never heard this story before. Loved the tone of the article. It really does capture Buffalo in the 90s. David Lorenzo Glover, the controversial counselor. So many life lessons learned from the inner city streets. We experienced our share of laughter as well as pain. These are the experiences that gave us the rites of passage. Although the situation was very traumatizing, you are a better man because of it. I salute you, brother. Yeah, David grew up not far from Buffalo, up in Niagara Falls on North Ave. He's always posting pictures and posts about North Ave. So David definitely has a connection to his block. Scott McKinney, one of my uncles, the Iceman, says, well, even the greatest lost a fight or two. Being the last of 8 kids and 5 brothers, I got beat up all the time by them to get me ready for the Buffalo streets. I also have brother-in-laws hitting me at the early age of 5 and 6, smile, LOL. Sometimes the best self-defense lessons taught to you is taking a whipping. The next time you will fight because you don't ever want to feel the sense of not trying your best to defend yourself. Kareem Hollins wrote, I, sir, seemed to be a magnet for just the same type of energy you received that dark Buffalo night. The fear I felt in some neighborhoods is what motivated me to join the U.S. Army. I deemed it necessary to overcome a fear of confrontation to be able to survive as an adult man. I'm really not sure if it worked at all. I've been on 3 overseas air defense artillery combat missions to Southwest Asia, in which I'm decorated for, yet there is still something about, I still feel some kind of way about, okay, and you put a bunch of emojis there, so I'm not really sure what all of those emojis mean. Jolene Faulkner Gervais, some of these folks are from Hutch Tech High School. Thank you for sharing your story and your experience. I grew up on the East Side, and it is core to who I became. I am saddened and hope there is attention to support it, same as there has been with other Buffalo neighborhoods, as it has a strong and proud history that needs to be acknowledged and invested in. And then finally, Charles Lee, this is different from Chucky. Charles Lee says, I truly sympathized and empathized with this story. I also agree that this was a life in Buffalo in the 90s. I think that dealing with somewhat similar situations is the major reasons why I never came home much over the last 25 plus years. As I've aged, I realized that there's a lot of ignorance in the inner city that wasn't turned into teachable moments for everyone. The Marine Corps helped me overcome a lot of my fears. Although I'm older, I can walk these same streets with no fear, but always being cautious. I think that was the last one. Okay. Yeah, so if you ever give that a read, please give it a like. Please give it a comment. Someone left a very long comment over on Dr. Boyce Watkins' Black Enough. I'm not going to go in there and read that one, but this piece pretty much got good support all around. So I think I'm going to stop this here. Thank you for the applause, extended clips. As always, I appreciate your support. And, I just thought that on this writer's blog, again, I'm just sharpening my writer's chops and, getting myself out there as a writer and an author as I'm working on a bigger project. But, these stories come to me, and I think that, when I write these stories, I think that they're story worthy. But make no mistake, people have experienced and seen much worse than this in the inner cities. This is something I walked away from. People have seen other people get killed. People have seen other people get shot. People have been hit by stray bullets. People have been in drive-by shootings. You name it. This is just minor compared to what some other people have experienced. But for me, not running the streets as a youngster, being relatively sheltered, and being home in Buffalo on a visit, this was a very, very big deal. And this was before I got my PhD. So you can imagine that, well, had I been snuffed out that night, there would have been no Dr. Dunbar, because that was about, 3 to 4 years before I even started graduate school. So just think of, and you hear stories like that. You hear stories of young kids, particularly young Black boys, who are on their way to doing something, who have tons and tons of potential, and they get snuffed out on the streets over something stupid. Maybe it's mistaken identity. Maybe that kid was the friend or the cousin of someone else. Maybe that kid was in a gang or something like that. But these things happen. I just happen to live, and I lived to talk about it. Wayman Brown says, I know this all too well, Doc, being from Broadway and Fillmore, and living all over the East Side, including Bailey and Delavan and Jefferson and Utica. Yeah, when we moved from the West Side, my mother bought a house on Harriet, which is off of Delavan, which is a little ways down from Bailey and Delavan, but that's the nearest main intersection. So you had to watch your back on the East Side, but also you had to watch your back. I'm going to pull the map back up. You also had to watch your back in North Buffalo and South Buffalo. I heard of numerous racial incidents in South Buffalo. So, you would think that northern cities were more progressive than the southern cities, but the majority of the northern cities were segregated as well. It's just the racism and the bigotry and those things. It just, I think it manifests differently in northern cities than it does in southern cities and municipalities. So, okay, guys, I'm gonna flash the site one more time, because a part of this is marketing. So that's that essay, that short story. This is Big Words Authors. I'm going to go to the homepage. That story is below this stream. You can click on the link. If you're an aspiring writer and you want to get your start, whether it's poetry, book projects, essays, or there's four of them: short stories, books, essays, poetry. The guidelines page is here for submitting something, for contacting me for this purpose. So that's there. And that's it. Big Words Authors. That's the site. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop this here. Let me go back to the homepage and stop the screen share. I want to thank everyone who hung out in the chat, and I saw a few people come in and out. I didn't expect a large crowd for this one. I know in the YouTube streets, I think Angry Man is finishing up. Dennis Sperling might be going. Crimson Cure, she's going. I think I don't know if Obsidian's going right now, but this is just an after work short stream, and there we are. So if you're watching this on the playback, please like the stream. Please share it. Please subscribe to my channel. If you read that short story, please leave a comment underneath it. And if you're interested in writing something, feel free to reach out and contact me. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your evening. Look out for the next one. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.